Hello everyone and welcome to Reddit Hub, where today we explore r// entitled parents and the crazy Karens within it. Our first post is from user Cheerio Dude number 2. Little disclaimer. This happened 6 years ago, so virus lockdowns had nothing to do with this. Bit of backstory, I am mildly colorblind. Protanopia, I think, and I have had this my whole life. I mostly struggle with telling the difference between pink and yellow, but there are more colors out there I can't see. This all started when the primary school my younger brother, 11 at the time, and not colorblind, was putting on a party/fair. I don't remember what for, but I think it had something to do with fair trade. Now my mother made me cut out some paper chains along with other people in the gym to prepare for the fair. More and more people left, until it got to the point where it was just me and another kid and an old gentleman at the back. Remember this part? And this kid was professional at making paper chains. Now, I struggled to keep up. I was sitting closer to the piles of paper than he was. When the kid ran out of paper, he kindly asked me to pass some of the yellow paper. I pulled some pink paper out of the pile, thinking it was yellow, and he looked at me confused, so I responded with, "Wait, is this pink or yellow?" And he responded pink and led me to the yellow paper. I apologized and told him I was colorblind, and he started to ask questions. They were questions of curiosity, such as, "Do you see red?" or "What color is that?" Then enters EM. The EM in this case was the kid's mother, and had entered the gym looking for the kid's father, and overheard us talking about my colorblindness. The EM first said, "Blank sweetie, please keep your distance. I don't want you to become colorblind as well." Me being utterly confused replied with, "Excuse me, you can't catch colorblindness from another person." The EM then proceeded to give me BS looks, and then walked out of the gym with her son in tow. I'd say about 5 minutes later she returns with the head of the department, and said, "Yup, he's the one." The head then approached me and said, "Are you the one causing disturbance down here?" Me. No, what do you mean? This woman thinks my colorblindness is contagious, and that I'm going to give it to her son. The head of course did not believe me, being a 14-year-old at the time who slacked off a lot. My mother overheard the conversation and walked in and started to defend me until the EM yelled, "Colorblindness is contagious and you're going to give it to everyone here if you don't leave." Me and my mom looked at her, utterly shocked, and the head was unaware on whose side she was on, until she said, "Alright Mrs. EM, and you user Cheerio Dude number 2, I'm going to ask you both to leave as you're both making a disturbance here." But then, an old gentleman at the back of the gym stood up and said, "There is no disturbance, miss. Mrs. EM is the only one harassing anybody here," before sitting back down again. Having heard his side, the head banned the EM from the school fair. Don't worry about the kid though, he got to go with his dad. I saw the EM drive out of the school, and I haven't seen her since. Also, as it turns out, the old gentleman was the school's former headmaster. Edit. I want to make it absolutely clear that the kid did nothing wrong, it was all the EM. Edit 2. As a response to the concern in the comments section, I received a pair of colorblind glasses in 2016, which has been helping me out massively. Last edit. The head was the head of the department, not the entire school. I thought I made that absolutely clear when I mentioned head of the department when I introduced her. Our next post is by user Another Guilty Witness, where an entitled parent tries to arrest them for taking ADHD medicine. Edit. Due to the large amount of people asking why I didn't press charges, I will explain. At the time, I was already done with the situation and didn't want to interrupt my day further. I'm not entirely sure it would have, but I still didn't want to. The $15.60 estimate was for the pills, by the way. For context, I have ADHD. I take legally prescribed medicine for it, and if I forget to take it in the morning, I have a couple of doses in a pill bottle from an old fill in my car. It's important to take it daily as it works better the more days I take it in a row, similar to some antidepressants. Each fill costs about $60.70, and I keep about 1/4 of a fill in my emergency stash. So, it's the weekend and I have plans to meet some friends at a local coffee shop. We have masks, outside seating, and sanitizer at the ready. This so happens to be a day where I forgot to take my medicine. We order our drinks and snacks, and after I put our order down at the table, I tell my friends I need to go take my meds. I go to my car and grab the bottle to bring back as I left my drink with my buddies. I get back and as I pop the pill into my mouth and take a sip, a wild Karen appears. No haircut, but a 5/6-year-old kid in tow. She slaps the open pill bottle off of the table, and starts screaming about how I shouldn't do drugs, yada yada. She demands I apologize to her son for being such a bad influence and doing such sinful things in public. I try to explain that they are not narcotics, but medicine for my ADHD. Then she phones the police. The police arrive, and they get our stories. After getting witnesses, the police ask me for proof that these were my meds, which I provide. At this point Karen is starting to sweat. She realizes that she effed up, and is now trying to backtrack out of the situation. The police ask me if I would like to press charges, as the meds in the bottle are now earned. I say no, as I'm not about to spend court costs over $15. Karen is dealt with, and we leave. One story to tell richer. Edit. I have been informed that I would not have needed to pay for a lawyer, only contacted district attorney. It would have, however, interrupted the day we had planned further than it had already. Our final post is from user HNR2000, where they deal with an entitled dad in a restaurant where his own kids have to call him out on it. So I was out with my family at a restaurant. It was a well-liked and highly reviewed Chinese restaurant. This story is short but sweet. Cast. ED is the entitled dad. SKZR has 2 preteen daughters. RM is the restaurant manager. W is the waitress. My family and I were sitting, eating our food when EP and SKZR seated a few tables away. ED seemed pretty friendly, asking staff questions about the place, and having general conversations with them. They order their food. Their food arrives and they start eating. While they're eating, a fly lands on ED's food. The fly didn't come from the kitchen, it wasn't on the plate or in the food. It came through the entrance and was flying around the restaurant. ED was complaining about it to SKs who were laughing and joking about it. ED says it's really not funny girls, it's a sign of poor hygiene. Do I look like I'm laughing? This is serious. ED calls the W over and says a fly just landed on his food. What are you going to do about it? It's put me right off my food. W asks if it was in the food when it came out of the kitchen, and ED said no, it's just landed on it. W stood there unsure of what she was supposed to do about it. She offered to take the food back to the kitchen and get a replacement, but he said no. ED continued to complain to her. Side note, I work in hospitality, and there is literally nothing you can do about a fly that comes in through the entrance to the building when customers come in. I genuinely don't know what he was expecting of her. Eventually, W goes to get the RM, and even he didn't know what to do. He apologized, but there wasn't really anything he could do about it beside offer him more food. SKs were still laughing at this point, and ED was telling them off because of how serious it was. Eventually ED loses his temper and says, you know what, it doesn't matter, I'll just eat it, or something along those lines. The RM and W walk away. ED is still complaining to SKs, and he doesn't touch any more of his food. SKs are still happily eating. ED forces the SKs to leave their food and leave the restaurant. He asks for the bill. W. £35 please. ED. Really? Do you really think you should charge me that much when I didn't eat the food? W again stood there not knowing what to do. They continued telling him he had to pay £35, and ED continued refusing. ED was close to shouting, and RM and W were trying to resolve it. SKs were literally almost crying by this point, shouting, Dad, stop. Just pay the bill so we can leave and things like that. ED says, go wait outside, girls. I'm not paying £35 for food I didn't even eat. This went on for literally about an hour. ED then goes, I'm not paying £35. I'll pay £10 and nothing more. This slams his money on the counter and leaves. Both RM and W are in complete shock, and I am ranting to my family by this point because I worked as a waitress and felt terrible for the staff. What was ED expecting them to do? They can't stand at every door and window and kill every fly that tries to enter. It wasn't in any way their fault. And ED refused to have a new meal brought out. RM came over to us and apologized, and all of my mum said what a D, and this made RM and W smile a bit. They were comforted by the fact that we agreed with them in thinking ED was out of order. It was a lot more dramatic than it sounds here, I promise.